welcome back to the Deep Dive. So if you're listening to this, chances are you're right in the middle of that modern battle against, well, information overload. Every presentation you give, every pitch, every meeting, it feels like you're fighting for just a tiny bit of brain space.
You want a system, right? A blueprint that makes your message land instantly.
And that is exactly why we're doing a deep dive today into Brant Pinvidic's The 3-Minute Rule. And look, this isn't just some catchy title.
Right.
It's a real structural approach born from probably the highest stakes presentation environment you could imagine, Hollywood.
Yeah.
Pinvidic's whole thing is based on this one core, pretty brutal premise. You have about 180 seconds, 3 minutes, to nail your message, to get that first impression right.
And that's it.
That's the window. That's how long most audiences take to decide if they're staying with you or, mentally checking out.
I think the source credibility here is it's the most compelling part. Pinvidic isn't just a theorist.
Not at all. He's a veteran Hollywood producer, now a business coach, who used this exact method to pitch hundreds of TV shows. And in that world, if you don't grab a network exec in the first 90 seconds, you're done. You're walking out with nothing.
It's high-stakes practice, not theory. It teaches what he calls scene economy. No wasted words, no filler.
Right.
So our mission today is really to unpack this deceptively simple system he created. It's a method designed to make sure that in those crucial 180 seconds, your message is clear, it's concise, and it actually makes the audience want to hear more.
Okay, so let's start with the psychology. Why 3 minutes? It feels so short. Most of us grew up thinking a good idea needs, at least a 30-minute explanation to really build the case.
Well, what's so fascinating is how he connects that Hollywood pacing to cognitive science. We're all living in a world of decision fatigue. The flow of information, emails, alerts, everything is so constant that modern audiences just have dramatically less patience, a lower tolerance for ambiguity. They need to categorize an idea instantly. Is this relevant or is this just noise?
So you're minimizing their cognitive load. If you make them work too hard to even understand the basic idea in those first few minutes, they're gone. They've already moved on.
Precisely. That old rule of, slowly building up to a big reveal, it's defunct. Pinvidic designed this rule specifically for our short attention span world.
It forces you to be intentional.
Radically intentional. Every single word, every piece of data has to be actively working to advance the pitch.
And that forces this huge mindset shift. You have to accept that the goal of the first 3 minutes is not total comprehensive understanding.
Yeah.
It's about earning permission to continue the conversation.
That is the entire goal. It is singular. Secure their interest. If you're strong, if you're concise and compelling, you earn the right to go deeper, to get into the spreadsheets, the technical details.
But you can't start there.
You can't start with the expansion. You have to earn it first.
I think for most professionals, the biggest struggle is just knowing what to cut. They understand being concise is important, but they don't have a structure for it. And that's where Pinvidic's framework, WHAC, comes in.
The WHAC framework is the engine of the whole thing. It stops presenters from just rambling. It gives you 4, very concrete questions that structure your whole pitch. It's a map.
Okay, let's break this down then, because the actionable stuff is right here. First pillar, what is it? This sounds so simple.
It does.
But it's often where people fail, right? They confuse being complex with being clear.
It has to be defined simply. Quickly, and with zero jargon. Think of it like this. If you can't describe your idea to a smart 10-year-old, you haven't nailed the W.
Okay, give me an example.
So if you're pitching a new AI scheduling tool, you don't start talking about proprietary machine learning algorithms.
Right.
You just say, it's a smart calendar that automatically optimizes team availability to cut meeting prep time by half. Simple definition, clear function.
Makes sense. It forces you to just get to the essence. Okay, so on to the second question. H, how does it work? This is your value proposition.
And this is where you explain the value. The big mistake people make here is they focus on how they built it, not what problem it solves for you.
Oh, I see.
So with that AI tool, the H explains the value. Instead of talking about complex API integrations, you focus on the direct benefit. You say something like, it cross-references 5 different data streams to eliminate those awful does this time work email chains.
Which everyone hates.
Which costs the average employee 3 hours a week. You focus on the pain you were taking away.
I really appreciate that distinction. It shifts the focus from your expertise to their problem. But an idea, even a valuable one, is just a claim until you prove it. Which brings us to number 3. A, Are you sure?
This is your validation. This is how you earn credibility, and fast. Since you only have seconds, your proof has to be instantly digestible. You can't just assert value, you have to validate it.
And that's where you pull out your one killer stat.
Your killer stat, your most compelling testimonial, a brief, stunning statistic, something specific. Pinvidic really emphasizes specificity.
So instead of it saves a lot of money.
You say, our 3-month pilot program with the regional team cut operational expenses by 18%, which translates to a savings of $2.4 million annually. See, specific numbers stick.
They really do. Okay, and finally, the fourth question. C, can you do it? This is all about execution.
Exactly. Okay. The audience might love your idea, but they are also sizing you up. Can you deliver? This is where you briefly show it's feasible.
And so talking about your team.
It could be. Mentioning your team's qualifications. We have the only team in this sector with expertise in both AI deployment and legacy system integration. Or maybe showing a roadmap that proves you've thought through the hurdles. It's about showing capability.
That WHAC structure is so powerful. It's like a closed loop that just guides everyone from concept to conviction. But we both know structure alone doesn't make something memorable. And this is where Pinvidic's Hollywood background really comes into play with the storytelling.
That's where you move from a technical presentation to artful persuasion. Narrative elements make the pitch resonate emotionally. They make it sticky.
He talks about two critical devices for this. The hook and the edge. Let's define those.
Okay, so the hook is that startling or novel element. It's the one thing that makes the audience sit up and think, wait, that's really cool, or that's different. It's often surprising.
And the edge is the urgency. It's that vivid example of why this cool idea matters right now.
Yeah, it connects the cool hook to the listener's actual self-interest. A great edge makes the benefit emotional. So instead of saying, our software reduces employee turnover, a powerful edge is, by eliminating repetitive tasks, our team members now report a 70% decrease in burnout.
So your best talent stays exactly where you need them.
It humanizes the metric. It gives it a face.
To structure that whole narrative, he suggests starting with an origin story or an aha moment. We're all wired to love those stories of discovery.
You use that story to create an emotional connection right at the start. And then, this is crucial for structure, you have to include a callback to that opening moment later in the pitch.
Oh, interesting.
Usually during the C, the execution phase, it gives the audience this feeling of completion. It shows how your solution ties directly back to that initial problem you introduced.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, and maybe a bit counterintuitive for a lot of business presenters. He talks about strategically using negatives, vulnerability, what Hollywood calls the all is lost moment.
Right. In a movie, this is when the hero hits rock bottom. In a pitch, it means addressing the biggest risk or, say, acknowledging a past failure before your audience can even think to bring it up.
So you might say,
look, we know our previous launch struggled with scaling, but here's how we proactively rebuilt our entire infrastructure.
That feels so risky. I mean, why would you lead with a weakness when you only have 180 seconds to get them on board?
Because it builds massive trust. And credibility. When you are thoughtfully honest about the hurdles, you preempt their doubt. If you just stand there and pretend everything is perfect, you lose all credibility the second they spot an obvious flaw.
So being vulnerable actually makes you seem more competent.
Far more effective. It shows you're a realistic partner, not just a salesperson with a rosy forecast.
So we've got the WHAC structure, we have the Hollywood storytelling elements. Let's talk about the actual delivery, because all this planning can fall apart if the presentation itself is just bad.
Pinvidic's big on this. He emphasizes simplicity over flashiness. The presentation should support your message, not distract from it, which is why he's a big fan of minimalist slides.
If you use them at all.
And
that means ruthlessly cutting down on bullet points and complexity. You're not there to read your slides. You should be speaking in declarative, confident sentences. The slides show the proof, you deliver the narrative.
And this all circles back to the hardest part for most people, the rule of editing. This is where the real discipline comes in. You have to cut everything that doesn't support the core WHAC pitch in those first 3 minutes.
And most people don't want to. They see their ideas as their children. They can't bear to cut anything.
Exactly.
But I have to push back on that for a second. Isn't cutting that much complexity inherently dangerous? What if you're pitching, I don't know, a highly regulated pharmaceutical drug or some complex financial product? How do you edit that ruthlessly without being misleading?
And that is the critical nuance. The risk of oversimplification is real. If you force an idea that genuinely needs deep technical understanding into 3 minutes, you will lose some nuance.
So what's the move?
You have to prioritize the result over the mechanism in those first 3 minutes. The goal is always to secure the next conversation.
Not to explain everything at once.
Exactly. If the complexity is truly essential, your job is to find a simple, powerful analogy to represent it without getting lost in 50 bullet points.
Which leads right into audience context. For, say, a highly technical audience, an engineering team, for instance, who expect hard data up front, a 3-minute pitch might feel a bit superficial.
You absolutely have to know your audience. If your job is to brief an engineering team that needs hard numbers immediately, the framework still works, but you just tailor the content.
So for the "are you sure" part,
You might swap out the inspiring testimonial for the key engineering metric that confirms feasibility. The structure holds, the content adapts to who you're talking to.
and we shouldn't forget the emotional labor here. Asking presenters to openly talk about all is lost moments, that can be really tough. It requires some courage.
It's true. It's a method that asks for both intellectual rigor and personal vulnerability. But the payoff is huge because it fundamentally reframes your relationship with your audience. It moves you toward trust almost immediately.
So if we look back at the whole framework, what are the core actionable takeaways you want our listener to walk away with?
I'd say it's twofold. First, really focus on that concrete WHAC structure. Use those 4 questions like a checklist. Make sure you've covered concept, value, proof, and feasibility.
And second,
prioritize simplicity. Clarity over just overwhelming people with data.
Yeah.
You have to embrace the ruthless editing to stay in that 180-second window. And remember that credibility comes from both the proof you offer and the vulnerability you show by addressing risks head on.
This framework just seems so valuable for anyone who needs to persuade. Whether you're fundraising, launching something, leading a team through change, it's about mastering the art of saying less to deliver more.
Right. And we've talked about adapting your pitch by understanding your audience. So here's a final thought for you to mull over. Pinvidic says you have to anticipate how your audience will rationalize their decision to say yes. So beyond just crafting your edge, that vivid outcome, ask yourself this. How can you specifically tailor that edge to not only appeal to their needs, but also to give them the perfect justification they need to sell your idea internally to their own boss or their own team?
So you're not just pitching to them, you're giving them the tools to pitch for you.
Exactly. That ability to give them the language for their own internal persuasion, that is the ultimate measure of a truly unforgettable pitch.